case that we've been litigating involving a shareholder who had a ground floor apartment that had sliding glass doors onto a patio in the back. The doors leaked and water started coming into the apartment. There was a dispute between the cooperative and the shareholder about who was responsible for repairing the doors. And so the leak went on for some period of time, as a result of which mold developed in the apartment. Ultimately, the cooperative repaired the doors. The initial repair was not successful. They brought somebody back and it was repaired again. And finally the leak was stopped and the mold was abated. But not before the shareholder made the claim and brought a lawsuit claiming that not only had their property been damaged by the leaks and the mold, but that they were suffering physical effects from exposure to the mold, including headaches, inability to concentrate, upper respiratory symptoms, lack of libido, various laundry list of sort of generalized symptoms that they claimed were caused by the exposure to the mold. They moved out of the apartment and were claiming millions of dollars in damages as a result of this relationship that they claimed between the exposure to the mold and the damp conditions in the apartment and the symptoms that they were suffering. And they had a doctor who came in and testified that this connection existed. But we initiated what's called a Fry hearing, which is a hearing to test the quality of the scientific evidence that's being offered by a party to a litigation. And it's a way of assuring that an expert doesn't just get up and testify to anything, but there's some scientific basis for the claim that's being asserted by the expert witness. Mm-hmm. And so we challenged the connection that was being drawn between exposure to mold and exposure to damp indoor air conditions and the kinds of physical symptoms that the plaintiff claimed to be suffering. It went to a hearing, several days worth of hearing with extensive testimony and extensive scientific materials submitted, and we succeeded in getting a ruling from the court that there was no established scientific basis. In other words, the standard is that there be general acceptance in the scientific community for the scientific principle that's being asserted. And we got the court to rule that there is no general acceptance in the medical community of a connection, a causal connection, between exposure to mold and damp indoor air and the kinds of symptoms that the plaintiff was complaining about. As a result of which, all of their personal injury claims, along with the millions of dollars of damages that they were seeking, were dismissed. That case was, that decision was appealed by the plaintiff to the appellate division, which issued a decision at the end of last year affirming the trial court's dismissal of the claim and its finding that there was no causal connection proved between the mold and the physical symptoms. And recently an attempt to appeal that decision to the Court of Appeals was rejected by the Court of Appeals. So for the purposes of this case at least, and we think of broad applicability to cases of this type, a plaintiff is going to have to show a lot more than just the fact that they were exposed to mold and that they have some sort of symptoms. They'll have to show a connection that one caused the other rather than they both happen to occur at the same time.